After a covert luxury boat scandal completely erupted, Prince William essentially mounted a covert coup inside Buckingham Palace. His first significant action is to methodically remove Queen Camilla from the royal apparatus. The most bizarre aspect isn't even the yacht. Rather, it's how a simple ship registry change that hardly anyone reads caused the entire situation to go apart. For example, the type of maritime file that existed solely for insurance purposes ended up setting off a series of events that are currently changing the British monarchy in real time. That's when the story really begins. And to be honest, the official explanations start to break apart the further you go into the time frame. Before we go into the specifics, if you're new to Crown Watch, please subscribe to ensure you don't miss any updates as this story progresses. Okay, let's dissect this. The journey took place in late July 2025, and no one was supposed to know about it. Camilla was on a super yacht docked off the southern coast of France, while William and Kate were making consecutive public appearances throughout the United Kingdom, such as visiting a children's hospice in Birmingham and attending a veterans ceremony near Edinburgh. This was not a royal warship, nor was it chartered by the monarch, with a court circular entry and an official staff list. The Esperanza III was a private super yacht registered in Malta that belonged to a Swiss financier through a Luxembourg-based company. The financier's name was absent from Camilla's official schedule, her public journal, and any press releases the palace released during that summer. The public was not informed, no royal correspondents were briefed, and this trip was completely unrecorded by the palace press office, which typically documents almost all significant movements of senior working royals. That in and of itself reveals a lot. This was purposefully kept off the books rather than being an oversight. The owner of the yacht has never been charged with a crime and is not a convicted criminal. However, his name has been included in several European lobbying reports within the last 10 years. In areas that are uncomfortably near to the kinds of decisions that royal patronages and crown estate management can affect, such as land development, agricultural policy, and heritage property legislation. His company continues to have active business interests. Following the Prince Andrew scandals, the royal family was expected to stay away from people like him. This is where things become worse. For the time being, let's concentrate on this particular 5-day vacation in late July. Camilla had previously stayed aboard his boat. That information will be discussed later. A Conservative Party contributor with ongoing property planning applications in the West Country was on the guest list. It also included a media executive from Europe, whose company has broadcasting agreements with companies that are endorsed by royalty. Additionally, the names of at least 2 people were found in documents that were released from a Brussels lobbying inquiry in 2023. None of these individuals were listed in the public record, nor were they present in any official capacity. Neither an anonymous whistleblower nor a significant investigative scoop caused the story to emerge. It was discovered through a normals update to the ship register, which is a type of conventional maritime document that is rarely read by anyone other than industry experts. According to the document, the ship was in a particular marina on a given date. This document was then cross-referenced with a guest-published photo by a royal researcher. Someone had already saved the backdrop photo of a dinner on deck that was momentarily shared on a private Instagram account before the person removed it. A German media outlet and 2 British journalists received the image within 48 hours. The German group knew exactly what they were looking for because they had spent years monitoring European lobbying networks. Reporters were discreetly confirming the fundamental details by the first week of August. By mid-August, the palace press office began receiving calls for which it was ill-prepared. This particular circumstance was particularly harmful due to the timing of the vacation as well as the vacation itself. William had been promoting a very particular idea within the palace for the past 18 months: stricter regulations on gifts and hospitality from individuals with financial ties to the crown. more stringent restrictions on senior royals' ability to maintain outside relationships, and a clear internal directive stating that the monarchy could not risk another excess selling scandal like the ones that destroyed Prince Andrew, were all things he wanted. These new demands had been documented by William. All senior royals' homes received the revised regulations from his team. This advice was required, not optional. The document was delivered to Camilla's workplace. Despite this, she took the trip. In August, royal sources told the Times that the mood within Kensington Palace was one of controlled rage. And if you know how William works, that statement is far more frightening than an outward show of rage. William doesn't scream. He doesn't give information to the media. He refuses to be interviewed in order to give his perspective. He cuts people out of his life. His own brother was expelled from the royal institution. Without saying anything in public, he took Camilla's sister off the Duchy of Cornwall's salary. Through a planned and careful procedure, he pulled Prince Andrew out of Royal Lodge, leaving him with little other choice by the end. William is consistently described in the same way by those who know him the best. When he determines that something is finished, it's finished. If there is ever a formal announcement, it is merely routine documentation. Therefore, by late August, the question in royal circles was not if William would act, but rather how and when he would react. But before we get to his response, there's one more thing to consider. Who informed him? The news media did not inform William of this. Before journalists had made their first phone calls, he found out about it. A member of the tiny group who was aware of the trip, a visitor, an employee, or someone with ties to the yacht's owner, made sure Kensington Palace received the information directly. That is a warning, not merely a leak in the world of monarchy. It indicates that regardless of what transpired on that boat, at least one witness thought it was improper enough to confront the future king. The fact that William had a source deep within the circle fundamentally alters our perspective on everything that transpired, because it demonstrates that he was not taken aback by the scandal. He was purposefully given the knowledge to make him take action, and he did. This is where Camilla's story truly breaks down, so let's speak about the paper trail. The yacht Esperanza III is owned by a Luxembourg-based holding company and is registered in Malta with a Maltese maritime license. For luxury ships, this arrangement, an island registration coupled with a continental holding company, is rather typical, but it also makes financial transparency very challenging. And that's a big problem, since no one has stated unequivocally who paid for Camilla's time on board. Royals are required to declare any private trip hospitality they receive from outside parties. For this, there is a particular system. Senior royals are required to declare through internal palace channels any gifts, travel, or lodging they receive from private individuals that exceed a specified amount. Senior household officials analyze these reports as part of their yearly transparency records. None of these records mention Camilla's travel in July. Esperanza III's holding company, Verlaine Capital Partners, is registered in Luxembourg. One of its 3 stated directors is a British national who was mentioned in a parliamentary committee report on foreign influence in UK real estate markets in 2022. The report stated that his firm's lobbying efforts related heritage land choices warranted more investigation, but it did not accuse him of a crime. Decisions about heritage land are precisely those in which royal assistance has a real impact. These kinds of decisions are influenced by the King's Foundation, which Camilla is publicly associated with, and which Troll spent decades establishing. It's important, but it's not conclusive evidence of misconduct. Inside Kensington Palace, that response didn't go over well. The adage, "private travel is a personal matter," is appropriate for a vacation that a monarch finances independently. When the trip is organized by someone whose business has a direct financial relationship to royal charities, it doesn't function. The palace's own regulations were designed to avoid conflicts of interest at that point. Within days, Camilla's response was contested by William's office. According to a source, this response was direct, which means it wasn't conveyed through aid or diluted by diplomatic language. The telegram required that a complete account of the trip's funding be given to the king's senior officials right away, stating that it was unacceptable to refer to this as a private affair. That information was still missing as of the time this report was written. To add to the complexity, this wasn't the first instance. Camilla had previously accepted hospitality from the same yacht owner, according to 3 palace sources who spoke to 2 different journals. In the summer of 2023, it took place over a long weekend. Additionally, that travel was not included in the transparency records and was kept a secret. At the time a top official became aware of the earlier trip, there was a calm discussion. The matter was dropped, and no formal record was made. Although William was unaware of it at the time, he is now aware of it. Everything is altered by this. What first appeared to be a single error is actually a component of a pattern. Once the pattern was identified, it was disregarded. 2 years later, in 2025, the same yacht owner invited Camilla once more after contributing money to royal institutions. The port list wasn't the most important document for William's team. The charity accounts were the cause. They compared the dates of both boat excursions with the £40,000 that Verlaine Capital Partners donated. They then compared it with a 2024 planning proposal for a Somerset heritage site, filed by a branch of the same corporate business. Although the application was denied, it was examined by a team that included royal-appointed advisors. No one is claiming Camilla intervened to affect the result. However, the palace pledged to prevent the appearance of a strong contact with the businesses who sought judgments from organizations associated with her network. By the end of August, William's crew realized that this was more than a yacht tale. Everyone was left with a question that no one in the palace cared to voice aloud because the palace's governance had failed. Was Charles aware of it? It was a Tuesday in the first week of September 2025, when the meeting that altered everything happened. It was hosted at Kensington Palace instead of Buckingham Palace, which is a very important decision. Before the conference even begins, William gives a clear indication by selecting his own home rather than the king's. William's private secretary, his communications secretary, 3 top advisors, and 1 member of the king's household, who had been summoned rather than invited, were present. No one in the room failed to recognize the significance of the word ordered. Rather than using a computer screen, William brought a real folder containing printed information. The port records the 2022 lobbying declarations, the charity financial statements, and a 1-page synopsis of the 2023 trip were all contained within. An official who was supposed to forward the information up the chain of command had discreetly documented the earlier trip and then concealed it. He set a folder down on the table and left it there. He didn't walk them through the pages or explain what was there. "I need to know who saw this in 2023 and decided it didn't need to go further," he added plainly. Despite having worked at the palace for more than 15 years, the official from the king's household was unable to give a definitive response. He was aware that the earlier trip had been reported, but he was unsure of the decision to keep it off the official record. William expressed his dissatisfaction with the lack of clarity. What transpired was not a shouting match, according to a person with first-hand knowledge of the meeting. It was more uncomfortable and more silent. William followed the paper trail step by step. The first trip, the giving of money, the application for property planning, and the second trip. He posed a straightforward query and put them in chronological order. When did my father find out the solution was intricate? Charles had been informed of the July trip, but it was not a formal disclosure. Rather, it was an informal update. He was aware of it in the same manner that a husband is informed when his wife is taking a vacation. The place and approximate dates of her trip with pals. The owner of the vessel had not been disclosed to him. He was unaware of the donation, the history of lobbying, or the Luxembourg holding company. No one in the room was willing to openly address the topic of whether he bothered to ask. After a period of silence, William said that the monarch was unaware since the proper things were not protected by the system. Then he demanded 3 things. First, within 7 days, the king's chief private secretary was to receive a complete written disclosure of both journeys. Second, it was necessary to thoroughly examine Camilla's patronages in order to look for connections to outside benefactors. Third, the yacht owner and Camilla's home should immediately cease communicating. Through Charles, Camilla resisted this last demand. The following day, the monarch called William, claiming that Camilla had no intention of lying and that a formal evaluation would only be leaked to the media. William gave a frank response, pointing out that the palace could either control the issue or let it destroy it, because the news was already public. Charles didn't immediately agree, but he also didn't instruct William to stop. By the end of the week, William's team promptly rejected a partial disclosure that Camilla's office had sent. There is no modern precedence for a future monarch formally rejecting the position of queen consort. After that, there was a deadlock in which Camilla's office only supplied the bare minimum of information. However, the deadlock was quickly broken when fresh intelligence surfaced from within the palace. Just 6 weeks prior to the trip, one of the boat passengers had met, unlogged, with a member of Camilla's patronage advisory board in London. A picture from September 12, 2025 depicts Charles turning up by himself at a London movie premiere. Despite being on the initial schedule, Camilla was not present that evening. A schedule conflict was the official explanation, but no other information was provided. The majority of people didn't give it much thought, and royal journalists observed the change and moved on. But that absence wasn't due to a scheduling dispute inside the palace. It was the first obvious indication that Camilla's public obligations were being handled differently, and that other people were now involved in those choices. Since February 2024, Charles has been receiving cancer treatment. Other than a brief remark at the time of diagnosis, he hasn't publicly addressed the details. According to medical correspondents and palace insiders, his treatment plan has necessitated major changes to his work schedule. There have been fewer engagements, fewer trips abroad, and days when he's just not healthy enough to attend meetings. The power dynamics within the palace have been subtly altered by that physical reality in ways that have never been openly acknowledged. Someone else leads a discussion when the king is not healthy enough to do so. Someone else reviews a document when he is unable to. William has been that person more frequently during 2024 and 2025. This is neither a forced transition nor a coup. It's just what happens in any organization when a capable deputy is prepared and eager to take on the responsibility, while the person in charge is managing a major illness. However, it does mean that by the time the yacht story surfaced, Charles's capacity to act on Camilla's behalf was already more constrained than it had been 2 years prior. This wasn't because he didn't have the title or authority, but rather because William had been taking over the day-to-day management of the organization for months, and everyone in the palace was aware of it. After their initial discussion, Charles called William, arguing that the review ran the potential of becoming a larger public story. It was a very challenging call. Confrontation with his kid is difficult for Charles. Since the worst of the turmoil from the Diana era, their connection has been meticulously restored, and Charles has put a lot of effort into it. He also has a great fondness for Camilla. He married her when there was still a real risk to the institution, and he was publicly chastised for that relationship for 30 years. There is no doubt about his dedication to her. Charles resisted once more when William informed him that the review would still go forward, despite the partial disclosure from Camilla's office being insufficient. He allegedly informed William that Camilla had assured him there was nothing about the 2023 trip that required more investigation. William made it clear to his father that the paperwork did not match her word. You may learn anything about the current position of authority from that interaction. When a son informs his father, the current monarch, that a personal guarantee from the king's own wife is insufficient, The king is unable to firmly decline. William granted Charles 72 hours after he requested extra time. The home was under a lot of stress throughout those 72 hours. Camilla's consultants spoke to palace attorneys, Charles spoke to Camilla, and Camilla spoke to her own advisors. On one occasion, Camilla was asked explicitly what transpired during the 2023 encounter between the Patronage Advisory Board member and the yacht visitor. In response, she said that she was unaware of the meeting's existence and had not attended it. That might be totally accurate, but it led to a new issue. If she was unaware that it had happened, it meant that someone in her social circle had secretly set up a meeting between one of her patronage advisors and a man who would later host her on a yacht. She was either being managed by her own employees in ways she didn't know about, or the meeting wasn't important enough to bring up with her. Charles's defense was not made easier by any answer. After 72 hours, Charles was in a position that no husband wants to be in. Since the meeting had taken place and the documents were in existence, he was unable to refute William's factual argument. Because the relevant staff member had only offered a partial explanation, he was unable to independently verify Camilla's claim, and he was unable to urge William to abandon the study without overtly undercutting the institutional change program that he had publicly supported. On Thursday night, he gave William a call. Compared to the first talk, this one was shorter. He instructed William to move forward. With the review, insisted that Camilla be treated with respect at all times, and urged that nothing be made public without first consulting him. The final two terms were accepted by William. Even before the call concluded, the review was underway. By then, all senior officials knew that Charles had simply lost the ability to keep her safe, even though he couldn't bring himself to say it aloud. While he was concentrating on keeping well enough to continue working, the area where his protection used to function had silently closed around him. Charles's ability to protect her had been the foundation of Camilla's security within this organization. There was a crack in that shield that was too big to be repaired. What does removal look like then? When Camilla's household first planned her autumn calendar in July 2025, it featured 14 solo engagements from October to December. These included keynote addresses at a women's leadership conference in Edinburgh, 2 literary events for her reading project charity dinners, the opening of a hospital in Cardiff, and patronage visits. 6 of those commitments had been discreetly rescheduled by the end of September. They weren't canceled. For the same day and occasion, they were handed to another royal. The organizations in question were informed that scheduling constraints were the reason for the move, but no other justification was provided. Since it's not a good way to keep good connections with the palace, no one posed questions in public. However, Camilla's own employees and royal correspondents saw right away that this is how removal occurs within a royal institution. It doesn't include a dramatic moment or a public speech. Meetings take place without you. The list of engagements gets fewer, and briefing materials cease coming in. The mechanism of royal existence is totally dependent on decision-makers' events and information. Your influence decreases as that access decreases. Without a single word being said, the power shift is accomplished, and employees soon realize their futures are no longer dependent on your office. William didn't have to make a declaration regarding Camilla. There were 2 stages to the staffing adjustments. A senior communications advisor and Camilla's deputy private secretary were informed at the beginning of October that their positions will be reorganized as part of a palace efficiency assessment. Neither was replaced, and both took on different roles within the larger royal household. By the end of October, 3 junior employees were to be redeployed as part of the calmer second phase. By November of 2025, Camilla's hard-working crew had shrunk from 11 employees at the beginning of the year to only 7. Senior royals were routinely briefed privately on foreign policy, local politics, and institutional issues, while her access to information was restricted. Since the coronation, Camilla had been given a wide variety of things, but starting in October, her distribution was restricted. Institutional briefings on foreign policy and unrelated topics completely ceased. She was put on a tight need-to-know basis instead of being told as a matter of routine. Kate has played a clear part in this chain. 2 of Camilla's charity dinners and the Edinburgh Women's Leadership Conference were taken over by her. Within a week of these reassignments, Kate's office verified her attendance, indicating that her team was aware of the openings before Camilla's team had even processed the move. Kate was able to take up positions that Camilla had previously held, because to this purposeful repositioning, which ensured continuity for the organizations concerned. This transition has been so complete, as evidenced by one last detail from late October. Charles's own Gloucestershire rural residence, Highgrove House, hosted William and Kate for a weekend. Camilla stayed in London at Clarence House. It was simply an ordinary family weekend, according to palace sources. It was well known around the palace that Charles, William, and Kate were spending time together without Camilla. Camilla continues to wear her title and goes to official functions with Charles. Although she is still the Queen Consort on paper, she has fewer appointments, a smaller staff, fewer briefings, and a thinner diary. A formal decree is not necessary to change someone's position. All you have to do is make changes to their surroundings until they notice the difference. William addressed a group of top government workers engaged on public sector management reform in private in November 2025. 2 attendees later told reporters about the meeting, but it was closed to the media and no transcript was ever made public. The careful, circumspect wording that people typically expect from a future king attempting to preserve his reputation wasn't what they reported. William made it clear to everyone in the room that organizations that defend people at the risk of their own integrity do not last. He didn't name anyone or point to anything particular since he didn't need to. Everyone in the room was already well aware of the events that had taken place within the palace throughout the preceding 3 months. It is helpful to examine what William already controls in order to comprehend why his reform plan isn't merely a notion. The Duchy of Cornwall, which spans 135,000 acres in England, the Isles of Scilly, and significant financial holdings, produces about £30 million annually. Since Charles became king in September 2022, William has been in charge of this enormous estate. In less than 4 years, he has reorganized the management staff, replaced outside contractors, and terminated relationships that were based on personal trust rather than formal contract. The final point is really important. On that yacht, undocumented agreements based on personal trust took place. William's rigid perspective on government was not an accident. Before applying it to Camilla, he developed it over years of managing a £1 billion estate and demonstrated its effectiveness there. The Royal Foundation demonstrates the precise workings of his intellect. It has published yearly accounts, a board, a chief executive, and well-defined objectives. The program is terminated when it doesn't meet expectations. William handles the company like someone who has been burned by concealment in the past and feels that paperwork is the only true safeguard, according to a former advisor. Everything is available for examination and is on file. This is a technique he developed after witnessing his own family constantly harm themselves through unofficial, unrecorded agreements. It is not a peculiarity of his nature. William has made it quite evident what kind of kingdom he wants to establish. He desires stricter regulations over who represents the kingdom, fewer working royals, and a zero-tolerance policy for outside financial ties that seem to be conflicts of interest. The Yacht scandal just provided him with the rationale and impetus to expedite these modifications. The number of working royals is already declining. Harry and Andrew have left. Regional event coordinators who were once extended family members have been gradually replaced. With their lighter responsibilities, William, Kate, Charles, and Anne are now the monarchy's public face. There are less hazards, informal ties, and covert travels because the smaller group is much easier to handle. In this new arrangement, Kate's role has been drastically altered. Following her cancer treatment, she resumed full public duties in early 2025. Her office now manages significant coordinating duties and she attends strategic sessions that would not have typically included the Princess of Wales due to her quick adoption of a heavy schedule. Instead of only being a supporting spouse, one source characterized her as a co-strategist. She is the second most powerful person in the organization, since William trusts her judgment more than anybody else. In light of this, Camilla's diminished function isn't merely a short-term penalty for the boat excursion. She is just not a part of the new center of gravity that William is creating for the monarchy. The engagements that were transferred to Kate will not be reversed. There will be no reversal of Camilla's staff reduction. Palace officials steer clear of one important unsolved question. Camilla will succeed Charles as Queen Dowager. William will inherit significant properties, like Sandringham and Balmoral, but she will retain her title and a home. Because Charles is king, she has access to the institutional support she needs. When that happens, William's generosity will be the only thing that can improve her quality of life. It's pretty improbable that he will contribute anything in light of everything that has transpired. Camilla's title remains intact. At formal events, she still walks next to Charles, but the diary is smaller. There are less employees, and Kate is the one occupying her positions. There are 3 questions that no one in that palace is currently able to respond to. Was Camilla truly unaware of the danger she was taking? Is William correct to take this decisive action? Or is he creating a monarchy that is too tightly regulated to allow for human error? Will William show Camilla the kindness she so desperately needs from a guy whose mother she assisted in destroying once Charles is gone?